Hey guys, so it's the last video of the semester, and I wanted to make sure to close with something good. And luckily, chapter 13 of this story is about King Solomon, and there's so much good to talk about there. Uh, don't worry, I'm going to keep it short. I know you guys have exams coming up, so I'm going to do my best to keep it under 10 minutes. Solomon's life is packed with a lot of good and a lot of bad. We get to see the full spectrum in Solomon's life. And it's all really applicable. It's all really useful. But we are going to look at one of the stories before things start going south for him. And we're going to look at a story of Solomon's wisdom. So let's jump right in. So I'll start out with a little foundation here. Solomon was the son of David. So David was king. Solomon became king after him. He took over the throne from him. And early on in his reign, God appeared to Solomon. And God told Solomon that he would give him anything he wished for. So Solomon wished for the wisdom to lead his people with justice, which is an amazing wish. I love the way he phrased that. And so God granted him his wish, and in addition, for not asking for something selfish, God blessed him even further, and he granted Solomon riches and a time of peace in the kingdom. It's something David didn't get. David was a warrior king. He didn't get that time of peace. But Solomon got to enjoy that time of peace. And since he was so wise, he was the wisest man alive, God said no wiser king would ever rule than Solomon. And word traveled around about that. It was a small world. Word got around fast. And so people would come to visit him. People would come to visit this wise king. And they came seeking answers, seeking that wisdom. And we're going to read about one of those visitors today. So we're going to pick up in 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 3. Now when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind, and Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. So, we set the scene here, and the queen of Sheba heads to Jerusalem. Like the rest of the world, she had heard tell of Solomon's wisdom. But unlike the rest of the world, she didn't come seeking advice. She came to test Solomon. Now, my thinking on that matter is, you don't test something that you already believe in. You test something to find the cracks in it, to find the faults. And by not believing in the wisdom of Israel's king, she's also discrediting the power of Israel's God. That's our God. That's the God. And I think that's how the world responds to us still today. When they don't necessarily understand. See, as Christians, we know God, and we know God's blessings. We may not understand how God does things, or sometimes why God does things, but two things that we do understand as Christians from reading Scripture is the character of God, and there are no limitations on what God can do. If He wants to raise up the wisest king that the world will ever know in Israel, then that's exactly what He's going to do. But the Queen of Sheba, just like the world today, doesn't understand that. And again, like the Queen of Sheba, the world just wants to prove us wrong. So let's take a look at how this story plays out. We're going to pick back up in 1 Kings 10, and we're going to read the next passage, 4 through 9. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his cupbearers, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, there was no more breath in her. And she said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your words and of your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came, and my own eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told to me. Your wisdom and prosperity surpassed the report that I had heard. Happy are your men, happy are your servants who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king, that you may execute justice and righteousness. The queen is awestruck, as she should be. She can't comprehend all that she's seeing, because even though, she had heard the rumors about this so many times, she was only just beginning to understand the power and the majesty of God. See, those in the world who would try and test us or discredit us, they've heard of God, just like the queen had. But they don't know him. They don't know him and his blessings like we do. So they just want to poke holes in it. And that's just what the Queen of Sheba tried to do with Solomon. But what did Solomon do? How did Solomon respond? You may have picked up on this by now, but Solomon was pretty wise. That's one thing he definitely had going for him. And I'm sure that he knew what the queen was there for. I'm sure that before she even started speaking, he knew what she was there to do. And instead of telling her how wrong she was and kicking her out of the palace, he listened, and he answered her questions. He had confidence in God and in God's promises, and he knew that all he had to do was use that blessing and be a good representative of God. See, one of the things that really struck me are the things that the queen noticed, the things that really took her breath away in the passage. And yeah, she talks about his wisdom and his prosperity, but the thing that she really focuses on there at the end is the happiness of the people. I don't think she understood that happiness. I think it confused her, and that's why she noticed it. You see, when Solomon ruled and peace was upon Israel, they got to enjoy more than just a time of peace. They got to enjoy God. It was a happiness that the queen couldn't understand because she didn't know the happiness that came from God. And our passage even tells us that, yes, the happiness came from listening to Solomon's wisdom. But God gave Solomon that wisdom. That happiness was coming from God through Solomon to the people. Just like God told Abraham that he would bless him to be a blessing. And Christ echoes that very same sentiment in John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. He says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." You see, when we love people well, word travels. When we take that blessing and show it, news of our love travels around the world and people know that we are Christian. They're not going to understand it because they don't understand that love and that happiness that come from God. And even though they don't understand it, they're going to respond in different ways. Some people might be confused. Some people might be afraid. Some people might be excited. Some people might be angry. Some people might be rude. It's bound to happen. But what I can guarantee you is that everybody will react, because when we show love to another person, that godly, holy love to another person, we're giving them a glimpse of God that they may have never seen before, that they may not understand. And it's our job as sons and daughters of the living God to show that love and to show God to everyone that we encounter. Well, guys, that wraps up the semester. It's been awesome. I've loved making these videos for you guys, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching them. If you've fallen off and maybe this is the first one you're watching in a while, that's fine. That's cool. They're all back on YouTube if you want to watch them. If you don't, just keep up with us next semester. It's not a big deal. They're online for you to watch whenever you can. Wanted to invite you guys to the college Sunday school that Joel's going to be doing over winter break. I think it's going to be 4 weeks long. The 13th, the 20th, the 27th, and the whatever comes after that, January 4th, I think, maybe? I don't know. But Joel's going to be doing that, so be on the lookout for details. But I hope you guys have great luck for exams. I'm praying for you guys. We're all praying for you here at the church. Enjoy the care packages that we sent. Be watching your mailbox. They should be getting there anytime now. But I love you guys. Thank you for watching this semester. And hopefully I'll see you on winter break.
You're more than we can imagine.